What up, Shredder? In the year 2000, Chad Otterstrom taught me how to do a backside 360 in 411 episode number 1, an iconic video series that bridged his way over from skateboarding. And he said one thing that stood out to me and changed my life forever. He said backside 360 is the most basic trick you could do besides a backflip. That's probably the easiest.
The backflip, that's probably the easiest.
Here I was, 12 years old, thinking that backflips were the pinnacle of snowboarding, not some easy trick that anyone could learn. And Chad is saying they are not only easy, but the easiest trick. So the next weekend, my friend Al and I headed up to Tussie and learned how to backflip. And thus began my lifelong obsession with going upside down. So today, we're going to honor the great inversions of our time and walk through snowboard flips in roughly the order of easiest to hardest. Just know that it's different for everyone, so I want to know in the comments, which is the easiest flip for you? The number one easiest snowboard flip is the backflip. The original showboat trick, the ultimate crowd pleaser. The backflip is a surefire way to get cheers from the lift every time. It's also one of the easiest tricks in snowboarding. It almost feels like you're throwing a sack of flour off a ledge, except it's your snowboard and you're throwing it over your head. One thing that makes this trick so easy is that you can ride straight off the jump, no setup turn needed, and you can spot your landing the entire time. If you're flipping too fast, just open up and spread out, like a cat jumping off a tall building. If you've never backflipped, learn it on a trampoline, into the pool, and then give it a try. Either on a pow day if you get snow where you live, or on a warm day in the slush if you're on the East Coast. Now, we can't forget the backflip variations like the Wildcat, which I also like to call the Canadian backflip, where you go straight back over your tail like a cartwheel. And then there's the egg flip, popularized by SSX Tricky, where you flip straight back over your heel side edge. Once you can do any one of these backflips, take it to the half pipe and you just learned the crippler. The number 2 easiest snowboard flip is the tame dog, what some people call a front flip. If you notice, it got its name because it's the opposite of a wildcat. I think the tame dog may actually be easier than a backflip because you can do it on a very small jump. And if you don't make it the whole way around, you don't catch your edge like you do on a backflip. That being said, it's harder on big jumps as it's more difficult to spot your landing. Some pros have found a way around this with the forever awesome lawn dart, a laid out front flip. The number 3 easiest snowboard flip is the corked backside 5. Some people learn to flip by learning backside 540s and then leaning more and more into their toe side edge. Eventually, you end up upside down, like I did at my high school big air competition, or Bobby Meeks did in Afterbang, one of the best snowboard videos ever made. You can take this one 722. We used to call this a misty flip back in the day, but I think today we just call it a corked spin. Just go for a backside spin, lean into that toe side edge, dip your lead shoulder on takeoff, and it should come right around. This is basically an easier version of the forward roll that JP Walker did switch in technical difficulties, which I think is crazy because of how blind that landing is. Now, we can't talk about front flips without mentioning one more. There's a lot of talk about female snowboarders finally coming up and getting the credit they deserve. But when I was growing up, they had already made it. We had Shannon Dundowning, the legendary Terry Takitis, and Barrett Christie, the inventor of a trick so rare it got its own name, the Barrett roll. The number 4 easiest snowboard flip is the backside rodeo, a very strange trick where you set up with a backside takeoff, but roll to your heels at the last second and blindly huck over your back shoulder. It was invented by Peter Line and popularized in our friend group by Al. I could never really properly do them, but tried to fake it. Shout out again to Tara Takitis, who crushed these on monster jumps at Mammoth and dominated big air contests for years. And then there's the first double backside rodeo by Eero Ettila. Now the pros are doing triple backside rodeos off jumps at X Games. And of course we can't leave out Michael Chuck, yes that's really his name,
Michael Chuck,
who invented the trick on the backside wall of the half pipe and even did a double in the half pipe a decade or more before the kids were doing it. The 5th easiest snowboard flip is the frontside rodeo. This is really 2 tricks because you can do it in a very simple way, like a backflip frontside 180. TJ from Board Archives is great at this. Or you can do what's called a toe side frontside rodeo, sometimes called a todeo, where you basically dive forward off the jump while flipping backwards at the same time. Shout out to Kevin Keller, former Forum team manager. This trick is so crazy, it's one of the last frontiers for doubles. Marcus Cleveland just recently popularized this in the last couple years, along with Mons Roysland, even calling it one of the top 3 scariest tricks to do. But after researching this video, I gotta give credit where credit is due. Apparently Kyle Mack did a triple over 10 years ago. Insane. Lastly, we have double backflips in the double and triple corks, but we're gonna leave those for another day. If you still haven't noticed, these videos are mainly a way for me to engage in snowboard nostalgia and get back to a simpler time. Let me know what you think. Were the snowboard tricks of yesterday better than the huckfest we have today? Or do you marvel at the human mastery of a plank of wood strapped to your feet? Peace out, Shredder.